All right, testing, check 1, 2, how we sounding out here. All right, testing, check 1, 2, how we sounding out here. Cool, that sounds good. Let's get the camera up and running. Sweet. So, hello, and welcome to the stream. My name is Zaak Kerstetter. I'm an Ableton Certified Trainer. And this is the Friday feedback stream. This is one of my favorite things that I do all week long. I look forward to it. So this is the stream as opposed to the Tuesday Hangout stream where I listen to tracks that you guys are working on that you send me, and I will listen to them on stream and give you my honest, constructive feedback to the best of my ability. So usually at the start of the stream, I'm going to run through the basic rules, the kind of basic rundown, the idea of what's going on here tonight. And I'm going to start off by pasting the link to the spreadsheet in the chat and pinning it to the top of the chat. So it should be up there now. So if you would like to send me a track, click on that link, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Put the link in there. And I basically will go chronologically in order, top to bottom, to go through all these tracks over the next couple hours. So a couple just general things to be aware of, to be thinking about when you are sending me a track. Ideally, I would prefer original tracks only, so no remixes or anything like that, for two reasons. Number one, I don't want to have to deal with copyright stuff on the channel. And number two, if I don't know the track that you're remixing, it's hard for me to tell what's you and what's the remix, and so it's harder to give me feedback. What's up, After Party? How you doing today? So yeah, original tracks, and then ideally works in progress. You can definitely send me a track that is finished, it's done and already released. That's fine, I'll totally listen to it. But realistically, you're not going to go back and change a finished track. It's already done, it's already out in the world. So I like hearing works in progress, but it can be any stage. It could be something you just started that you're struggling with, or something that's almost done that you're struggling to get finished up. Whatever you want, that's totally cool. On top of that, if you are going to be posting a track to get feedback, I'd like you to participate in the conversation. This is not just like a one-way street where just me just talking to the camera. So if you're getting feedback, give other people feedback. Let them know what you think of other people's tracks. It makes the whole thing conversation, makes the whole thing more fun. Ideally, only post one track at a time. That way I can get through everything, make sure everybody gets a chance. If at the end of the stream we have time for people to send in multiple tracks, that's the thing that happens sometimes. But for right now, one track at a time. All genres, all styles, all skill levels are welcome. Doesn't matter if it's your first track or your 500th track. Whatever you want here, that's kind of what it's all about. And then lastly, if you cannot make it to one of the live streams itself, all of these videos get uploaded to the channel, so you can always watch them later. You can also get early access to the spreadsheet that you can upload to if you join the Discord channel. So if you join the Discord, follow that link in there, and that way you can post it. That way, if you're busy on a Friday, you can't make it, you can still send me a track. You can still get the feedback and just listen to it later. No worries. You can still send me the finished track that's already released. I don't mind taking a listen to it. And then also, lastly, a couple updates for the channel that I think are worth mentioning, that I will probably continue to mention as the stream goes on and more people show up. Number one, I now have the capability to accept super chats in the chat, which I did not before. So it's a cool new exciting thing for me. So all song feedback is free. Don't feel like you have to, pay anything for it. It's just something I like doing to help kind of with the community. But if you want to, you can super chat, whatever, a buck, whatever, and then I get paid, and that's cool. So that's a new thing that exists. And then also, if we're talking about me getting paid, I set up a Patreon a little while ago. I haven't been promoting it or posting anything in it yet, but people are starting to sign up, which means I'm going to start getting more active on Patreon and doing more like exclusive content there, maybe exclusive workshops, videos. I'm still playing around with exactly what that's going to look like. But if you like the channel and you want to help out beyond just being a subscriber and showing up and hanging out for live streams and things like that, the Patreon is up, and there's nothing there yet right now, but I think in the very near future, that's going to be a place where I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff. So you can go check that out. That should be linked in the description below, as well as the Discord channel. All right, that is all of the housekeeping stuff that I'm aware of. Oh yeah, and also if you like the stream and you're enjoying it, feel free to hit the like button or any of that kind of stuff. Sweet, so we got a couple tracks that we're going to take a look at that are already in there. Let me go ahead and pull this up. We got a track from Josh, who I think he uploaded this last week and we just didn't have time to get to it. Maybe we did listen to this. We'll listen to... Can't remember if we listened to this one last week or not. So we're gonna listen to it again. It's pretty short. But yeah, we'll start this guy. And I'm gonna do a quick little sound check. Let me know if it is too loud, too quiet, anything like that. But we'll get started with this one. Good to know, Yogi. Thanks. Appreciate you. Let me know the volume's good. Nice. Yeah, this is a very sick track, Josh. It's like pretty much all the tracks that you've been sending in. The production quality sounds really clean. Everything, like volumes sound really good. All of the instruments sound like, in terms of audio quality, sound design quality, mixing quality, it's like pretty spot on. I think it's working really well. I think there's the big thing I would say with this track that I want to hear more of is just more layers and more things going on. I think it's a really solid foundation, but I think it needs another thing on top of it to really like grab my attention. I think I could, like, if this showed up on like a Spotify playlist, I'd be like, oh, that was cool, but I wouldn't remember it as opposed to other house tracks in the kind of the same genre. That might be intentional. That might be something you're doing on purpose because you might be want to put like a vocalist on top here, in which case the vocalist would be like the main kind of center of attention, and that would definitely like fulfill that role. But I think for right now, it's like it's a little too mellow, and I want there to be a few more things going on, especially during the first like minute or so. I think this intro sounds really cool, but it needs something on top of it. Either like a cool little melody line, some vocal chops in there could be really cool. Like an instrument, like some saxophone playing in the background here could be really kind of cool. Something to like really kind of grab your listener's attention at the beginning, because I think that it takes a little bit too long to kind of get to the real kind of like meat and potatoes of this track. So something else in the intro could be really cool. I like what you're doing with the vocalizations right now. I think they sound really cool. But they also could be doing more, I think. And I think you switch it up a little bit as the song goes around. So you have one here. And there's like a different over here. They're just kind of like this like really heavy sidechained, choppy vocally thing. More pitch variety in there, like try pitching up like 1 octave or 2 octaves or down an octave or 2 octaves, just so we get more diversity in like tonally and emotionally. I think that would go a really long way. And then the last thing that I think needs a little bit of love here is the bass line. The bass line is working for me. Like it's a cool, like chill, housey bass line. But I think tossing in a few extra notes in there every once in a while, to help kind of fill in that space a little bit could work really well, and also make it feel a little bit more groovier or funkier than it is right now. Like I said, it's got this really kind of nice minimal house pluck bass sound. But I think if it was noodling, if the bass sound is like noodling around a little bit more, it was like playing some more different notes in there, I'd be into it. I think that could work really well in your favor, or maybe having a couple different kind of variations on the bass line, so it's not just the same kind of plucks over and over again. I think that'd be a big deal. But I think the drums sound good. I like your kind of atmospheric pad sounds. They're really kind of pretty, fill in the space really well. But yeah, and then like one big thing that needs to go on here. So I could hear like a really nice, pretty guitar melody, a vocalist. Like I said, saxophone could work really well, to really kind of like round out the arrangement. And then I think you're good to go. I think that's the big thing. But yeah, super cool track. Like I said, sounds really good. Some nice like chimes, like a glockenspiel, but like a really pretty chimey melody could also work really well, especially like one in the background with a bunch of reverb. That could be kind of nice. But yeah, really solid sounding track. Chat, what do you guys think? Questions, comments, ideas? Yeah, I totally agree with what Johnny's saying in chat. Like very smooth sounding track. So we want to appreciate that. Also, if anybody else is just joining us and would like to send a track, the link is pinned up to the top of the chat, and you can just toss your link in there and I will get to it. All right, got another one coming. This one is from Project Mammoth. What's up, Chapati? How you doing there?
don't make sense at all. Evil ends and love takes a fall. Can you blame me if I stay away? This mesmerizing is not okay. But I won't give up. And I won't.
Yeah, this definitely has like a Sunlux kind of vibe to it.
I'm here and I'm ready to play this confusing game. Since when did hyenas laugh in the clouds? Since when did gravity escape the ground? Did you know that Salvatore painted the sky? When you see the stars melting, you'll know why. Did you know that the universe bleeds fractures and right? In the end, it was 42 that made everything alright. Did you know that Salvatore painted the sky? When you see the stars melting, you'll know why.
Damn, bro, this is a really cool track. Lot of really interesting influences in here. Like people were saying Sunlux in the chat, which I totally agree with. I was getting a little bit of like Arca, like especially like old Arca kind of vibes with it. Yeah, fantastic use of combining like experimental production, but also still making it accessible. And I think like the spot where those two things meet is really tricky to do. And I think you actually did a really great job here. Couple pieces of feedback. Number one, I felt like the vocals, I'm not sure if that's you doing those vocals or it's somebody you know, or you just grab samples or what, but like the vocals were amazing. The vocals, I think without the vocals, this track doesn't work for me nearly as well. I think the vocals really help ground the track quite a bit. And your use of vocal processing at first, to me, was a little too over the top. One of my original pieces of feedback was like, tone down some of the processing in the vocals. They're like a little too garbled. But then I got used to it and I actually really kind of liked it. And then by the time you got to the end of the track, the vocals towards the end of the track were not as processed and much more clear. So that felt really intentional. And I now actually think that like maybe during the beginning you could tone down some of the processing, some of like the glitching weird effects you have in the vocals, but that's not necessary. I think that that's actually it's working for me after having listened to the whole track. The other thing about the vocals was, I think probably across the board they could be a little bit louder. I think partially just because I think they're really cool and they are such an important part of the track. Make them a lot of times they're getting kind of drowned out by a lot of the other kind of weird glitchy percussive sounds you have going on. So I think the vocals could go up a little bit in the mix, and I would not be disappointed by that. The other thing that I felt like needed a little bit of love was you have this kick drum / tom drum pattern is what it sounded like. That was like kind of like the main part of the rhythm, and it sounded like to me your kick drum and your tom drum were layered together, and I could be wrong about that. It was a little hard to tell. Or maybe you just had tom drums happening at the same time in the kicks, or like a really similar timing. I felt like the tom drums to me were distracting from the kick drum, and if it were up to me, I would have either the timing be slightly different or mix them a little differently so that the kick really shines through. Because every time there's that kind of kick pattern, it makes it sound like you just have this really tonal kick drum, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I wasn't a huge fan of it, and that might be again a personal taste kind of thing more than anything else. So if up to me, bigger, stronger, punchier kick, a little bit less of that mid-range tom drum kind of sound, and then I think we'll let the drums fill out a bit more. And then I also felt like the drums just overall could have been compressed. I'm talking like the main drum part, not a lot of like the weird percussion parts. I think with a song like this, you can really kind of like purposely over compress those drums to really bring out a lot of those transients and really make them sound kind of like a little more distorted and a little more just present in the mix. And I would totally be in favor of that. I think it's something you could do here, and that would work really well. So those are the main two things I was noticing. Was just a little bit more vocals, maybe a tiny bit less processing the vocals, and then a little bit more drums and more processing on the drums, mostly just in terms of volume and making them louder. But I think the rest of the track I think was really working for me. I like the weird guitar parts in here. Those fit really well. I like all the weird glitchy things. The whole thing felt like it flowed. I was never bored during the whole thing. It never felt repetitive. Yeah, really cool, just like weird instrumentation. Yeah, love the vocal processing. Yeah, super cool track. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I was thinking about when I heard this. Chat, what do you guys think? People in chat seem like they're into it. The other thing I knew I had one other thing. I couldn't remember it. A little bit more of a bass line in there. It seems like you're kind of using that kind of kick / tom drum pattern as your kind of low end. And maybe there is a bass line, but it's just maybe really quiet and I couldn't really hear it. But it'd be cool to have a bass in there. That would work. Johnny, is this you? This is a super cool track. But yeah, having a bass line doing its thing, I think would also help kind of fill in the low end a little bit. One of my favorite things to do for this kind of music, this kind of style, is use really acoustic sounding drum samples, like the Abbey Road drums in Contact, for example, and then just like crank them through a compressor, and then you get these like big boomy sounding acoustic drums, but they work well for this kind of music really well. So try it out. And is that your siblings doing the vocals? Yeah, I'm definitely into it. It's the kind of track that makes me want to hear more of the stuff you're doing. It's like one of those things where like, wow, this is really interesting. I want to hear more what this artist does, which is a good sign. Sweet. Gonna jump over to After Party.
No sir, no ma'am, and I want you to know who I am. Broken, floating, feelings in the room. Mustn't say, stowing away a fear I might express. Keeping up on conversations no one will regret. And when you figure which one gets the final say, I'd like to show you how to look another way. Sometimes I think about my usual dismay, and I lose it all to the mosaic mind, to the mosaic mind, to the mosaic mind, to the mosaic mind. Sold out, sold in to the rhythm of love connect. So I don't wanna lose or believe yet. Sold out, sold in to the rhythm of love connect. So I don't wanna lose or believe you yet. Apart to pull you out, apart for me to stay. Another moment gone, another on the way. So when you figure which one gets the final say, I'd like to show you now to look another way. Again, floating. Final say, I'd like to shame about my usual dismay, and I lose it all.
All right, that should have fixed it, hopefully. Is it working now? Sound okay? Hopefully. Yeah, that happens sometimes. I appreciate you guys letting me know. I don't know what causes that, but I know how to fix it. So usually that only happens like once per stream, hopefully. Yeah, no worries. I can repeat it. So the main thing I was talking about was the vocals. It sounds like when you are starting with the vocals, they're in terms of the processing, it's pretty dry and pretty minimal. So over here, there's not a whole lot going on there. And so I think that as the song goes on, you start adding in these other vocal harmonization layers and different effects and things, and they get much bigger and much fuller, especially once we get over here. So here, there's a lot more stuff going on. And so it sounds like you're doing that on purpose to kind of contrast the kind of like minimal vocals versus the more kind of layered vocals. But I kind of wish the minimal vocals had a little bit more going on with them. So in terms of like maybe a little more reverb, maybe a few little tiny, instead of doing like a full vocal harmony, to like a little tiny, you know, very in the background kind of vocal layers to go with it. I think that could be really helpful and really help just the sound of the vocalist feel a bit more kind of like rich and well-rounded. And then again, over here at the end, you have like all these vocal layers. And those all sound really good. So I think your vocal processing is good, but I think in the minimal layers, I want them to have a little bit more going on. Other than that, I think a lot of the other production is, again, kind of designed to have this really kind of minimal, sparse production style. I kind of wish the snare stood out a little bit more in the mix. It's there and it's audible, but it's a little quiet. So bringing that a little bit, and then maybe a little more processing the vocals during those minimal sections. And those are the two kind of main things that I was hearing here that kind of stood out. But other than that, I think it's sounding really good. Yeah, it has this very kind of like indie pop electronic kind of thing that I think you're nailing pretty well in terms of like the sound design and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's my feedback for this one. Chat, what do you guys think? Chat, if this is your track, what would you do to it? I'm listening to the end real quick just to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. I actually like this part a lot. I think this is my favorite part. That arpeggiator in the background, I think could be a little clearer, but I think it's doing the job. I think it's doing the thing you want it to be doing. But yeah, that's a cool track. Appreciate you for sharing that. Yeah, it's like a fast arpeggiator. Sweet. Oh shit, it's my first super chat. I appreciate it. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful. I know you said this track's already finished, so you are probably not gonna go back and do this, but I think that like to me it sounds like you know the genre really well, and it sounds like you know what you're doing. And I think get a little creative with some of your effects and some of your processing, I think is the big thing. Like don't be afraid to take some risks with how you're processing both your vocals and your synths and your drums. And if you go too far, just tone down the drive out a little bit and see what happens. But I very much appreciate the super chat. That's super cool of you. All right, so we got a track from, oh my god, how am I say this? Spala? Sabla? Something like that. I apologize if I just butchered that. What's up, Beatmaker? All right, so this was a hip hop track, if I'm not mistaken. What's up, Josh? How you doing? We already went over your track earlier, so you can watch that video later on. Nice. I think to me, this sounds like a really cool start of a track. I think that a lot of this really kind of depends on what direction you want to go with it. Do you want to keep this as like an instrumental? Do you want to, are you going to be rapping on this next? That kind of thing, because that'll change a lot about where you want to go with it. I agree with you that the mix needs some love, probably first and foremost. First thing I'll probably do is tone down the reverb on the drums across the board, especially on the kick. It sounds like there's a decent amount of reverb on your kick. And I think a little bit of reverb on the kick is probably fine for this kind of thing, but you want to be a little more minimal with it. And then same thing with the rest of the drums, but the rest of the drums you can leave a little bit more on there. I think that'll make a big difference. The other big thing that I was noticing in terms of your mix, especially for this kind of like main section right here, is the violins to me are the main focus. They're the main idea here besides the drums. So, and I can hear them, but they're like, they sound really far away. They're getting drowned out by basically everything else. So all of those string sounds, bring them way up, and that'll make the whole thing bounce a lot better. The other thing is, and this might be a personal taste thing, and you can ask me, or you can let me know what your kind of idea here is, but just rhythmically, it's real slow. I'm not sure what tempo this is at, but this is like, for a hip hop beat, this is feels pretty, it feels a little sluggish. And so I don't think you need to like massively change the BPM or anything like that. But maybe turn up the tempo a tiny bit, but that might depend on what your flow style is, and you know, I don't know if you're gonna be rapping on this or somebody else, but that also might help kind of bring in some more energy, and that could work really well. Other than that, so I like the percussion that you have. However, what I kind of want is a little bit more. So you have these like very Middle Eastern sounding strings. It's very like classical Middle Eastern sounding kind of vibe you have going on. And then the drums are these very kind of like rock and roll hip hop drums. And I think that's a cool combination. But I think one of the ways you can tie those two things together is some more Middle Eastern style percussion to go with it. So getting some cool, like a doumbek or whatever samples you want, grab them for whatever, doing some kind of cool Middle Eastern style rhythms, especially with some triplets in there, I think will also, it'll tie those two elements together, and it'll also add like this nice, like cool groovy rhythmic element to it as well. So I like the percussion you have now, but if you can get something a little bit more thematic, I think that'll really make a big difference. And then other than that, I'm gonna listen to this transition again here. So I think for this transition here, I might have gone a slightly different direction with it. What's up, Janef? Welcome. So instead of resetting everything, getting everything except for the drums, I might have gotten rid of the drums and just left the strings. And that way you can focus on the strings for a second and then bring the drums back in. And I think that could work better for this transition area. So yeah, so just strings here instead of drums, and then the drums come back in. Could be kind of cool. And then the kind of the theme here changes from the strings to this kind of piano guy. And And I like the piano guy, but I don't think it's as strong as the strings. So I feel like that needs a little bit of love, or massage that a little bit. See what you can do with it. But I think it's not quite as strong as this kind of main section you have here. But yeah, I think it's, like I said, this is a really cool foundation. I like what you got going on here. I think the strings and hip hop vibe are a classic. It's hard to go wrong with it. But I think don't stress too much about the mix quite yet. Really kind of dial in the arrangement, dial in the production, and then worry about the mix later on. But I think it's a cool start to a track. Yeah, and then oh, nice. Yeah, maybe add another layer here. Add something else to kind of like go with this. You also might want to think about speeding up the bass a little bit. The bass is really slow, and again, that might be the kind of vibe you're on, and that might kind of like that's the flow you're looking for when you get a wraparound here. But maybe have the bass speed up a little bit, and then keep the drums where they're at. That could also work. But yeah, I appreciate you sending me a track. Welcome. Yeah. Sweet. Well, it's been a lot of really cool tracks so far. I do want to take just a second to let people know a couple of things I announced at the beginning. Number one, as you may have seen, you can do super chats now. So, sending me tracks for feedback is always free. You can always send me, I'm not going to turn anybody away. But if you want to send me money, that's super cool. And you just hit the little super chat button, and you can basically tip me for it, which is pretty sweet. The other thing that is kind of new is I started a Patreon account. I haven't really posted or done anything yet on the Patreon account, but YouTube basically doesn't pay you anything, so it's nice to have a little support. So if you want to support the channel, the Patreon, I am definitely open to ideas on what kinds of content you might want to see over there. I'll probably do some extra videos, maybe some workshops, or who knows what it'll be. But yeah, you can check those out. The Patreon should be linked in the description below. All right, next up we got Van. Nice. That's a super cool track. Yeah, Yogi, I am always impressed every single week by the quality of the tracks that people send me. So I dig the kind of like early industrial kind of vibe. It has a lot, very much like nurse with wound coil kind of situation. Um, so I really like it. I think it's super cool. I think I do want to talk about the vocals in just a moment. Uh, I think the big thing for me that really stood out was you're doing some really heavy panning on certain sounds, and I think you could get away with slightly less panning, like still have it panned pretty far, but maybe not all the way. There's especially one sound on the right side there's in the intro that uh, was a little too loud and a little too far panned, and so like the whole time it felt like the mix was just on the right side, like it felt kind of a little lopsided that way. So watch out for that. And there was a few other situations where things felt kind of like panned in places that I wasn't quite expecting them to, which is not necessarily the worst thing, but you might want to take it easy a little bit on that. And then as far as the vocals go, yeah, I think that if you're gonna go for this this style of music, you could put it's tricky because distortion on vocals is you have to be really delicate with it, because too much and it ruins it, and not enough and it's not enough. So I think that maybe even setting up a like return track or doing some kind of like parallel processing with distortion for the vocal, so you can be like, you know, really refined and detail oriented in terms of how much you can do there. I think that'll be really helpful. But yeah, I do agree that a little bit more processing the vocals, a little more distortion, a decent amount of reverb, I think could actually go really well on this. And definitely more compression. That I think is the key. A decent amount of compression, a little bit of reverb, and a tiny bit of distortion. I think those are the three things I want to hear on those vocals to kind of make them really fit in here. And again, maybe you might want to do the kind of thing where you record a few more layers of you singing the same thing, and then have different layers of it kind of in the background to create this sense of not necessarily even harmony, but like just there's more things happening. Could be really good. I'd be cautious about how much tuning you do on this. I think that for this style of music specifically, there's something really, it's kind of like the blues, where it's like there's something really important about like the rawness of a performance. And I think it's probably more important that if you're going to do multiple takes, or you're going to be doing tuning or something like that, that you're not looking for the perfect performance. You're looking for the most emotional, most honest vocal performance. And that, I think, is what you want to be looking for. And I think you're doing a great job so far. The only one that felt like it might have needed to be re-recorded or maybe more processing is towards the end, this last one here.
Where can I trust?
That this little bit here at the end, I felt like you might want to this needs more processing than the other stuff, or you maybe want to re-record it and just get like a more kind of booming, powerful performance of it. But yeah, I think it's cool. Like I said, I dig the like old throbbing gristle coil kind of production that's going on here. I like it a lot. Sweet. Yeah, appreciate you for sharing that. All right, next track. Also, if anybody is just joining us and would like to send a track, you can just click on the link at the top of the chat, and that'll take you to a spreadsheet, and then that's where you can send me your track. And this is Yogi, I think. Is that who this is? Yeah. Oh man, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Nice. This definitely has a bit of like Aphex Twinny kind of vibes going on. But yeah, I think it's super cool. I'm digging the kind of like weird IDM kind of beat going on with like the big heavy bass lines to go with it. I'm gonna be real honest with you though. I did feel like the song didn't really get started until we got to this point, about 2:45 in. And then basically once we get here, this is like the real kind of like the main part of the song. And so it felt to me like we basically, for the first 2.5 minutes, it was one intro with multiple parts, but it was still all the intro, which I think is, you can potentially get away with that. If that's your creative calling, and you're feeling inspired that like, I want to have like a nice, long, slow build up till we get to this point, that's totally up to you. And I think that's totally legit. However, if it were up to me, I would either shave off like the first minute or so, or I would add in some extra elements in here to really make it feel like this song is kind of changing and growing and evolving, and taking the listener into different places. So a couple ideas for doing that. I think kind of throughout your entire track, it's missing a melodic element, and you have certain weird synth parts that kind of fill that role a little bit, especially later on here. You have like that kind of thing, which is really cool. But there's not that much going on in the kind of like mids and highs in terms of like synth sound design during this first section here. Like this is basically just drums with some sound effects in the background. This part's cool. I like the reverse sound a lot. I think there's a lot of room to explore with that reverse sound and maybe doing more with that and glitching it out or pitching up and down, or like I think there's creative potential there. And so this part's just kind of like a bass line and drums. And again, I like all the cool sound effects and things are kind of bouncing around, but there's not a lot sonically for me to absorb that's kind of new and changing in significant ways for this first whole section here, which is I think the big issue. So I like the drums, I like all the sound design, I like the weird IDM stuff you're doing. All that's super cool for this section, but I think that like either things need to change or evolve or grow or grab my attention in some way. And I think it's missing an element to do that with. So there's a lot of different directions you could go with that. You could put some more instruments on here. You could put some vocals, or vocal chops could work really well. I think it's kind of up to you. One of the things I often like to do when I'm in a situation like this, where I kind of have like, okay, I got my basic arrangement, it's kind of working for me, but one section is not working as well as the other. Take sounds that you have in this section here that I think is working really well and cannibalize them. Just like take them, move them onto a new track, just demolish them and change them and do all kinds of different things to them till they turn into something brand new. And then you sprinkle them throughout this section over here that actually needs the extra elements in there. That way you're not having to come up with a bunch of brand new ideas from scratch. And it will also sonically tie into the second half. So that way the first and second half have like there's sonic elements that are in both that kind of put together. Yeah, I mean, this is just my perspective on it. I don't know if chat agrees with me or not, but I did feel like, okay, I know and understand all the things that are happening in the first half as I was kind of going through it. But once we got to the second half, I was like, okay, now we're getting into new areas and like new elements are being introduced, and this area kind of piqued my attention a lot more than this area did over here. But that might be different for different people. Again, it's kind of up to you. I personally, when I write music, I always make my intros way too long, and I have to have somebody remind me like, hey, your intro can be 30 seconds shorter and it's just as good, if not better. So I like songs with long intros, and I like that kind of like long wait to kind of see where things go. But I think that, like I said, this could be either a tiny bit shorter or just a few more layers in there. Yeah, resampling and chopping is, yeah, the way to do it, I think. Well, Yogi, melody for this time in music doesn't need to be like a super classical melody. It doesn't need to be like, you don't need to be composing the world's catchiest melody. But just having sounds in that mid to high frequency range that kind of like, tickle the ear or whatever, can be really, really useful. So I don't think you need like a traditional melody in any sense. And like you can make glitchy melodies. Mr. Bill is a great person to draw influence from if you're looking for somebody who like knows how to take glitchy elements and then turn them into something melodic. Definitely check out his stuff. Yeah, no worries, Tripathi. So resampling is a really, really fantastic technique for just generating ideas. So resampling is when you basically you take a sample, which can be any piece of audio, and then you slam a whole bunch of effects on it, or you tweak it, or you process it, you stretch it, you reverse it, pitch it up, pitch it down, you change it in some way, and then you re-record it. And that way you basically start with one sample, you resample it into something new, and now you have multiple layers to work with. And some people, including myself, will do multiple layers of resampling. So I'll start with one sample, process it a bunch, re-record it as a new sample, process that a bunch, re-record that as a new sample, and just use that to just generate lots of sounds. And then once you do that, you can start chopping them up and kind of arranging them together. So you can basically start with one idea and come up with a bunch of other ideas and then splice them together, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, resampling is super fun. I'm probably gonna end up doing a video on resampling pretty soon, just because it's a really fun way to make lots of cool sounds. Sweet, but yeah, that's a cool track. Thanks for sharing that. We've been getting a lot of cool like glitchy IDME stuff today, which I like. All right, next up we got Janef. I would also like to point out at this point, this is the last track that I have not gotten to yet. So if you are hanging out in chat and you would like to send me a track and you have not sent me one yet, now would be the time to toss in here because you'll be right after this track. Nice. I mean, as always, just clean, super, super clean. Janef, I want you to do some homework and just listen to a lot of house music, because I think if you wanted to make house music, if you wanted to like go that direction and then like use this style that you already have, you've already been developing, and then translate into house music, I think you would just absolutely crush it. So listen to some like Afrobeat house, some like funk house, and see if that influences you at all, because I think that you would absolutely crush it. So with that in mind, I really don't have a whole lot of issues here. I think it all sounds really good. I would like to point out one thing that I especially really liked, which was, I think right here, that little, like, there's a little click sound, and then there's a little reverse sweep into the yell. That was really tight, really like that. More things like that could be really cool. Let's listen to one more time. Yeah, it's like a click sound that the reverb transitions into a reverse sweep, and then it like ends with a little I'm blanking the word, a little crash at the end. So that was super cool. More little details like that are just gonna be amazing. So I like that a lot. The other thing that I think is really important here that needs to talk about is the kick is basically non-existent. It's there, but I have to really struggle to hear it. And I think for this style of music, depending on which direction you want to go with it, whether you want to stick to this more kind of like mellow Afrobeat kind of style, then just a little bit more kick. But if you want to take my recommendation and you want to do more kind of like house like music versions of this, your kick needs to be massive. It needs to be way, way bigger. And I think this track with a gigantic kick drum would sound really, really dope. If you're not feeling that and you only want to have a normal amount of kick drum, that's totally fine. But if we're up to me, a big, beefy, housey kick drum, I think in here would tie the whole thing together and really make this track super, super cool. Yeah, and then the other thing I think would be really nice is you do it a little bit over here, I think. I don't know, a little bit more negative space. You have a bunch of these fills where you're adding more drums. If you had one where you're just like, it was just silence for half a second and then goes right back into the beat, that could also be really cool. So I think instead of just always adding more things for your fills, taking things out for the fills, which I think you did once, but I don't remember where it is. Like that one kind of works, but like instead of having that guitar in there, just nothing for a second, and then you bring it back in. Yeah, your fills are sounding really good. Now I'm noticing them more and more, and it's cool how they're always different and they sound really solid. Yeah, I don't know if the bass line needs to be super heavy, but I do think the kick definitely could be a lot bigger. But yeah, so it seems like you haven't really arranged this yet. It's just kind of like got the basic idea, but I think it sounds really good. I'm definitely digging it. Sweet. Chat, any other thoughts? All right, and then next up we got Bill, who I guess has been lurking in chat. How you doing, Bill? Yeah, we got time, Bill. We got plenty of time. Nice. Yeah, Jeff, I don't think he's programming the guitar. I'm pretty sure he's just shredding on the guitar himself. So yeah, it sounds greatly improved. I'm digging the direction it's going quite a bit. I feel like there's a few minor things that are still sticking out in the mix a little bit here and there, but overall the whole thing is sounding pretty good. So to start off, during this area right here, these cymbals, number one, they sound very electronic, and to me, the rest of the song has this very non-electronic music feel. So you might want to try swapping them out with a sample that sounds a little bit more acoustic to me. Same thing with the snare. The snare sample has this very kind of like digital sounding snare. And so I think replacing that with a sample that's like a little more acoustic could work really well. If you have access to it, I've already mentioned this before earlier in the stream, but the Abbey Road drums in Contact are a great place to get started if you're looking for more acoustic sounding drums. But also with the cymbals, they're a bit too loud. And so I would just crank the volume down on those. It's not as big of a deal over here when they're a little bit more spread out. But I still think they could go down a tiny bit. Other than that, I agree that the kick and the bass are clashing a little bit, and I think you could definitely either turn the bass down a hair or do what Van suggested and sidechain the bass to the kick. Not a huge amount, not like a big EDM sidechain, but just a little tiny sidechain just to make it so that when the kick's happening, it punches through the bass a little bit more. And then, all right. And then there's a weird thing that's happening during this section, and I'm not exactly sure what it is, but hopefully we can try to identify it. See if you noticed as you go from the transition from here to here, there's one part of your guitar that is not your main guitar part that sounds like it's echoing more than everything else. Yes, it's especially noticeable right there. So I think it's there's a second guitar part in there that sounds like it has a lot more delay than the regular guitar part. And so when that other guitar part is happening, it's echoing through the space, but your main guitar part's still playing, and that's when the two are clashing. So I'd watch out for that. See if you can identify if there's like an extra guitar layer that has more delay on it. I would tone the delay down, and it pops up a few other times in here if I recall. Right here. So yeah, there's a second layer of guitar where you're playing like a chord or something like that, and then it echoes out. And I think the chord itself is fine, but the echo is too much, and it ends up getting in the way of the main guitar part, which should be the focus of that part of the song. This part's cool, but it still has the same echo thing. And I really like this part. This part, I think, is working for me, especially here. And then you got like full on jamming out at the end, which I love. And I like the guitar into the synth solo and kind of like the two kind of going back and forth. So I like that a lot. Yeah. The other layer is just it's doing too much and it's taking up too much space, and we can definitely tone down that other layer. But yeah, those are the main things that I'm noticing. But it's sounding pretty solid. Anything else that I would do here, chat? If this is your track, is anything else you do to it? I think it's working as like this kind of almost jam bandy style backing track for you to be able to shred on your guitar, which I think is really cool. Yeah, no worries, Bill. Cool. Sweet. So at this point, we have gotten through all of the tracks. So I appreciate everybody who has sent me tracks. They've been awesome. It's been really cool to hear what you guys are working on, as always. Sorry I wasn't here to do this last week, but next week I will be back at all the normal times doing the normal things. I'm going to hang out for a little bit longer and see if anybody else has any other tracks. I got a little more time to hang out. But I also, once again, want to do a little self-promotion. Just let you guys know, you can now do super chats in the chat here, which is really cool. I'm super excited about it. Big thanks to those of you guys who've already done super chats today. That's really, really cool. I very much appreciate that. And then I also started a Patreon account that is linked below. And there's nothing there yet, but there will be very, very soon. I'm brainstorming ideas for content to get stuff going on over there, because that's just what you got to do these days, I guess. But if you have ideas for things you'd like to see on Patreon, what would make you sign up for Patreon, let me know, and I will try to make those happen. Yeah. Anybody else got tracks they want to send in? It's been waiting, or even if you've already sent me a track, if you want to send me another track, now is the time to do that. Yeah, Bill, I saw that. I appreciate that a lot. I think you're the first one. Oh, you have another track, Yugi? Go ahead and toss it in the spreadsheet. I said, I don't have an issue with long intros. They just have to do things. Nice. That's super cool. This kind of reminds me a lot of stuff I've been listening to and DJing recently. That's kind of like glitchy industrial bass kind of thing. So I'm not sure what your influences are and what kind of stuff you listen to. But if you haven't been listening to people like Sonia Calico, who's an amazing producer from I think Taiwan, Igloo Ghost, obviously, Cinchin Hawk, Zora Jones, kind of like Fractal Fantasy crew. They're like super into this kind of thing, and I definitely see this kind of thing um, being a style that is gaining a lot of momentum right now, at least in my world. So, like I said, really digging it. Style wise, you're crushing it. I can tell you're super into resampling, and that comes into play a lot for your process here. And I do think your intro is a tiny bit too long. However, if it were me, and you can take this or leave it, this transition right here, you can basically skip this little area, I think, and then it'd be perfect. I feel like this right here, and then you just jump right there into the beat would be really cool. I think this little space here is not doing you a whole lot. Yeah, I'll write them in chat once I'm giving feedback. So I think you got rid of that, then the rest of the intro is great. I think this length of an intro, which is basically a minute and a half, I think is totally legit here. But I also think more importantly, as opposed to your last track, there's a lot of things that grow and change during your intro that keep it interesting and keep it engaging. Whereas in the intro in the last one, it felt like it didn't evolve enough for my personal taste. And then once again, the second half I really like. I think it sounds really cool. I like the big kick drum. I like the rhythm that's going on here a lot. I like that you've been mellowed out for a second. I like the distorted kick that comes in. This may be my favorite part of the whole song. I just like that big kind of distorted kick with all of the other elements. I think if you wanted to explore this song some more and explore the arrangement a little bit more, this is the section that I would focus on. And really you can expand this and do a lot more with it because it's pretty short right now. My one critique though is the big kick just kind of goes away. It just kind of ends. And then does it come back again? It comes back over here. Yeah, I think the way that kick drum ends felt a little bit unsatisfying for me. So I think that maybe when the kick ends here, other things change with it, and that way it feels like we're kind of going from one space into another space, and then that would make it feel like an actual transition. Right now it just feels like everything else continues and the kick just stops, which I think can work in some situations, but in this particular context, it felt like that kick drum is really cool and deserved to have a big ending there. And then I like this here. I love this part. I love how kind of like weird you get with it. Sounds super cool. This part's super cool. And you bring back the kick. Yeah, I'm digging the rest of it. So yeah, those are the main things I would think about if I were you, is potentially getting rid of this little section right here. I think the rest of the intro is good. Maybe work on this transition where the kick drum ends. And then, yeah, maybe developing this part of the arrangement a little more if you wanted to. Because I think, well, before I give more feedback, let me just say that a lot of my feedback, I try to keep it contextual based off of what your vision for this track is, in that, like, where do you see this track being played? Is this the kind of track that you want people to sit at home and listen to with their headphones on? Is this the kind of track you want to be played at a, industrial warehouse underground rave? Is it the kind of thing you want it to be played in like a nightclub? Is the kind of like, or music festival, like where do you see this track existing? And I think for me, I kind of see this in the more kind of like underground, weird rave party. And if that's what you also see it as, then I think you could go a little bit harder with some of the kick drums and try to like keep it really weird, but also make it danceable, or at least like, nightclub acceptable in terms of how much bass you have in there. And that's what I really like about, where is it, this section. Like this is the kind of thing I could hear being played at a nightclub. And so if you want to further go down that rabbit hole or go in that direction, you could play up the kick drum, play up the bassy parts to really make it this kind of more kind of like, big, boomy, thumpy, low end kind of track. However, if that's not your vibe and you want to, you don't care, people play it in nightclubs or whatever, then you don't need to worry about that so much. But something to consider. I always think it's important to consider, where a track is going to live in the future in terms of, what you might want to do with it in the future. But yeah, super cool track. Both your tracks, I think, have this like really, like I said, kind of weird industrial bassy kind of vibe to it. Let me put in some recommendations if you're into this kind of music. I'll just put them in the chat so you can look them up later. Blue Ghost, Shangri-La, Kai. I don't remember how to spell his name. Michael Arca. Those are all kind of artists I think in kind of like this kind of realm that are definitely worth checking out. There's a few others, but I can't think of off the top of my head. Sweet. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing that. All right. So at this point we have gotten through everybody, and everybody's been sharing really cool tracks. And I greatly appreciate you guys coming in and hang out with me on a Friday afternoon or evening or Saturday morning, depending on where you live in the world. I had a great time. Listening to a lot of cool tracks. This is, like I said, one of my favorite things to do in the world. I will be back next week. Tuesday, we're just gonna be doing our regular kind of Ableton office hours, hang out, talk about music kind of stream. And then Friday, we'll be back doing another song feedback stream. Oh man, I got time for probably 2 more. So if Bill and Riley, you want to toss them in there, and then I think that's probably gonna be the cutoff for today, for this week. But you literally got me right just in time. No worries, Riley. I usually try to stream for about 2 hours, and it's been about 1 hour and 40 minutes. So you guys you made it. You made it in time. All right, we're gonna do Bill's first because you got his on the spreadsheet first. Thanks, Yogi. Appreciate it.
time for two to smile. All time to reconcile. War crime for cruel exile. Life comes back home to you.
Yeah, no problem, Yogi.
She fears his darkest need. He shares the Marxist creed. Artists too soon secede. Life comes back home to you. Frontiers of harvest freed. Light years from tarnished greed. We strive to harness speed. Life comes back home to you. Crime is the bootless child. Time is the ghoulish trial. Prime time for fools beguiled. Life comes back home to you. Life comes back home to you. Life comes back home to you. Life comes back home to you.
Nice. That's a super cool track. Couple things. First off, I've got a question about your vocals, Bill, and how you pan them. To me, it sounds like you have one vocal panned a little bit to the left and one vocal layer panned a little bit to the right. Is that correct, or am I misinterpreting what's going on here? Because I think that the vocals sounded a little strange in terms of how you pan them. So and that might be a quick fix. But other than that, I want to talk about that more once I hear you answer that question. But the other thing is the main kind of synth. It sounds like there's two synth layers. There's the main kind of one that's front and center, and then there's another one that's a little background. The one that's in the background, I think, could be a little bit quieter. And then the one that's the main one, you could maybe filter out maybe like a little high shelf filter just to tone down some of those high frequencies. It's a little bit piercing. Like I like what you're going for, but I think that it could be turned down a tiny bit. Not turned down, just shelf the high frequencies on it a tiny bit, and that'll make it not quite so piercing, but also still powerful and kind of still doing the same role. But that'll be my feedback on the synthesizer part. So yeah, so there's two left and two right and one center. I think that's too much vocal stuff going on. My ideal situation for my vocals is I have the main vocal layer, the main vocal part, the best vocal performance, the thing that I want to be the most clear goes dead center in terms of panning, just coming right down the middle. And then if I want to beef it up a little bit and make it sound a bit more kind of rich and full, I'll have two other vocal layers that will have slightly different vocal processing on them. So one might have a little bit extra reverb and maybe a tiny bit of, I don't know, chorus or something like that. And the other one might have a little bit of extra delay and like maybe a slightly different filter on it. So it's not the exact same thing. They're being processed slightly. And those are gonna be panned off just a little bit to either side. If you're using live, we're talking 10 to 15, maybe 20 to either side. Not super hard panned, just like still mostly in the middle, but spread out a little bit. That way you have the main vocal part coming right down the middle. So it's really loud, really clear, just right there for you. And then any of your kind of little detail ornamental layers can be panned off a little bit and then also turned down. So they're audible, but they're not competing with the main vocal part. And that's my like 30-second, tip on how to get good sounding vocals without doing a lot of work. Hopefully that makes sense. But I think right now, there's too much panning going on, and the different vocal layers were too different, and so my attention was being drawn back and forth between different sides of the stereo field, and that was a little distracting. But try that method. One in the middle, two off the sides a little bit. The ones that are off to the side are processed, and then turn down fairly quiet. Like you can hear them, but only just barely is kind of what I'm going for my backup vocal layers. So try that out. See if that makes a big difference to you. See if you notice it fitting in a little better. Because right now I think there's too much going on with it. Yeah. I was saying this to Van earlier. Rawness of the performance is way more important than perfection. So if you're feeling it, just that's what you need more than anything else. So I understand. I also do not have a great singing voice, and luckily enough, I don't make music where I have to sing. But I have recorded my own voice, and I had to process my own voice, and it definitely, like, I understand the need to want to mask some of those imperfections, but you can still mask it. But I think you can probably do less. Less is more to do that vocal processing, and I think that'll get you really solid results. Other than that, I really like the drums. Like it has this kind of like driving kind of feel to it. The vocals and the drums almost kind of remind me of Swans a little bit, if you ever listen to them. The synth not so much, but the other parts, the vocals for sure. All right, so by the bridge, you mean this area right here, I'm assuming? I like this part. Yeah, I like that part a bit. I think the part that I have issue with is this little space area right here. I like the use of space. I almost feel like, and you may or may not be comfortable with this, instead of using the synth to fill this little space area, put some of your vocals in there. And just, you can put extra amounts of reverb and extra amounts of delay on it to echo into the space. And then it sweeps in to this part with the drums and the synth. That's totally a personal preference thing. I think that would be really cool. I think that we already get enough of the synthesizer, and it's doing a lot of work over here as well. So I think using this space as an energetic reset, and then just using your vocals where you say a couple words and then noise sweep into the bridge would be really cool. But that's up to you. You can take it or leave it there. But yeah, I'm digging it. All right. So this is going to be the last track for today, for this week. And again, once again, thanks to everybody for sharing your tracks. And let's check it out. This is from Riley, if I'm not mistaken. I think already you win the cover art award for the week. I love this, whatever this is. That's sick. It's really cool. It reminds me of Adventure Time meets Mobius. Thanks for popping by, Tripati. We'll see you later. Nice. This is a really cool track. It definitely passes the vibe check. It has this like really solid, like happy energy. The whole thing evolves really well. Like the arrangement flows from one idea to the next, and it feels like it continually builds on top of itself really well. I think there's two things that I would look out for if I were you, if you were going to kind of like keep, evolving this track. It never really climaxes quite the way I want it to. Like this part's really cool. But I'm wondering during this final section if you can figure out a way to kind of bump up the energy a little bit more. There's a bunch of ways you could look at doing this. I think adding a couple new layers right at the very end that could really help. Having the pitch go up. So maybe having some of the layers that are looping for a long time, have them go up an octave towards the end, like shifting in, frequencies going up kind of like builds tension and energy. So that could be a kind of cool thing to look into. I don't think it's super necessary. I think the whole thing flows and evolves really well as it is. But because it has this constant evolving energy where it's like it keeps going up little by little, I kind of wanted there to be a big climax at the end there. Not 100% necessary, but something to look into. The other thing that I definitely feel like you could take a look into is the drum production. The synth production is great. I love the notes you're using. I love the sound design you're using. Everything evolves really well. I actually really like a lot of the drums that you're using, especially... Where's the part with the drums? There's a part where you had a really cool drum thing in here somewhere. There it is. Yeah, you have these kind of like rolling snares in the background that are really cool and work really well. However, the drums are just getting drowned out in the mix. Yeah, the mix on the synth is great, but the mix on the drums definitely needs some love. Those drums need to be big and huge and clear, and they're just getting drowned out by all of the synth work. So I think the drums themselves are fine. I think they sound really good. They're just getting lost in there. I think you need to compress them, number one, and then also just check the volumes. If you want my like 2-second, mix technique tip, basically when you are when you're listening to your mix, close your eyes and think about which sounds are grabbing your ear's attention. Like, where is your attention being drawn? And that's usually the loudest sound in your song. And if that's what you want to be the loudest sound in your song, then great. It's great. You're good. And so when I listen to this, I can hear lots of things. My brain is attracted to lots of things before I even get to the kick or the snare. So that to me indicates that like the kick and the snare need to be much louder. especially if you're going to be doing this style music. So I think the actual sample selection is great, the rhythm is great, but they are just getting totally lost in the mix there. So compress those bad boys, turn up the volume on them, and I think you're good to go. What's up, Gauntya? How you doing? You managed to catch us right at the very end of the stream, but I'm glad you stopped by. But yeah, other than that, I really like this track. Like I said, I think the arrangement works great. Maybe a little more climax if you want to, but if you bring out the drums, then I think the rest of this track really just pieces together. Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, even here, the synths are carrying all of the energy of the song, and the drums need to be carrying a lot of that weight. Yeah, I mean, I really like the style. This to me is very much like sunrise house music, which is like my favorite kind of house music. That's not a real genre. That's just when I like to DJ house music. And so you can totally like see somebody like, playing this at a sunrise set at a festival or something like that. But yeah, super cool track. Love the artwork. Tell your wife that's amazing. It's super, super cool. Yeah, compression and EQ, especially on drums, is just like it's such a process to really kind of figure out how to do all that stuff and make it work and make it work well. But I think, if nothing else, just adjusting the volumes on the drums will do you a lot of good here. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing the track as well as everybody else. That's going to be it for the stream this week. I will be back next week on Tuesday for another Hangouts office hours Ableton stream. Yeah, no worries. Thank you for sharing your track, Riley. And then a week from today, we'll be doing another song feedback stream. So I'll see you guys back here. Feed me some new tracks, and I'm very much look forward to it. So have a good week. Make some music, make some tracks, take care of yourself, all that kind of stuff. Drink lots of water, get outside occasionally, and make lots of music. Yeah, have a good weekend.